We want to open the Strategic Planning Committee meeting on Monday, December 3rd, 2012 at the Ascension Parish Courthouse. We call this meeting to order. The invocation will be given by Ms. Cazzo, followed by the pledge.
Father, we thank you for the opportunity to come before you tonight to do your business in Ascension Parish. We ask that you will bless each member of this committee and our audience and our citizens for whom we do this work. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call. Councilman Malonzo and Councilman Johnson are not present. Everyone here else is here. Number 3, public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak on any agenda item, sign in whenever your agenda item is on, and you will be allowed to speak then. Number 4, information discussion regarding Ascension Parish pipelines. Rick Weber.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, in your packet that you have on the left side of it is
Rick, for just said that, let me, for the people, benefit of people that has not.
Okay.
This is something that has been ongoing since we've had a couple of accidents regarding pipelines within the parish in the last few months. And in order to get a handle on this and try to make sure that the people of the parish are protected, we started looking at all our conditions and who's responsible for what, and trying to get things given out on a timely manner to the people of the parish, warnings and et cetera. So this is the 3rd meeting that we've had. We're gradually moving to adopt some type of ordinance to upgrade our pipeline safety and pipeline concerns within the parish. And with that, Rick, if you want to continue from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As on the right side of your packet, you'll see a copy of the first draft of an ordinance. The ordinance that we have right now in Chapter 8, when it was developed in 1984, really spoke to the roles and responsibilities of elected officials and the establishment of my office, but it didn't adequately capture what pipeline safety and hazmat releases. And I think we've done a good job of capturing that in that ordinance. And on the left side is what we'll use for the hazmat emergency classifications and alerting in the petrochemical industry. What I'd like to do is just introduce this to the committee and review for the next 30 days. I'm going to present it to the LEPC next week and get their input, and then I can report back to you in January.
Okay, Rick, can you just do a little short synopsis of each one, at the high points of what we're trying to do on each one?
The one, as it relates to hazardous materials, we reclassified the types of emergencies that we have in the parish using what's been used for over 50 years in the Nuclear Regulatory Commission as far as nuclear plants. The classifications are unusual events, alerts, site area emergency, and general emergency, and we have the definition of each. We've created an aerial photography, an overhead view for each plant, and a specific map for each location. And within that map, it has the complete EHS inventory, the siren activation codes, the shelter-in-place radio notifications, the first call grid notifications to shelter-in-place the public, gate access, and in any schools or any critical infrastructure that's located near the facility, along with all the point of contact information. And then the last sheet is a flow chart that we use within a 911 center for what actions to be taken for whatever specific classification of emergency that we do have. That's specifically for hazmat releases. What the pipeline portion of the ordinance is going to cover, it basically mirrors the state laws that are already in effect. I've got a meeting tomorrow afternoon with David Fry with LA One Call. What I'm gathering so far is that if we get every notification for every dig in a parish, we'll be inundated with tickets. The statewide is 17,000 tickets a day. So I think that we would be inundated. What he recommended was that we go with a risk analysis, where we have a high density of population. That's the areas that we want to get tickets on. So that's what I'm going to sit with him and go.
Yeah, and so, I mean, you're gonna have a zoning area of the pipelines that, I mean, I would think that, since we have a list of pipeline right-of-ways existing, and if they have to get a permit to come in for a new pipeline, we would have a right-of-way, we would know where that area is, then we could just designate those right-of-ways as what's gonna be needed to get notified.
Right. What not
Are
that
we
I'm not
correct,
concerned with water lines or sewer lines. I'm more
Right.
concerned with the extremely hazardous substances that are being transported in the pipelines.
Right, and that's
And-
what I'm talking about.
Right, and more than that, I'm concerned with the encroachment of the population near the right-of-way. So what we want to do is identify the high-density population that's encroached on these pipeline right-of-ways, and then pull a polygon around that area, and anytime somebody digs within that zone, my office immediately gets notified, and we'll get notified 48 hours before they start boring or trenching within
Now,
that zone.
that's gonna be within that pipeline right-of-way?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
that's what we're looking for. Yeah.
So tomorrow, I'll figure out what are the metrics of this thing, how do we set it up, how do we get notified, and then we can go from there. But just to do it as a blanket policy
No.
across the parish to get notified of every dig, we'd be inundated.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
yes, Mr. Lambert.
Yeah, that's exactly what we was talking about, Rick. Just, I didn't want you to get everything, but, you're gonna meet with David tomorrow. I mean, y'all can narrow it down and, get the hazardous, the high level ones and, get that to your office. And, I think that's a start. And plus, dealing with, getting a permit to do the work actually, so.
Right.
I'm hearing what I wanted to hear, so
Yeah,
that's
okay.
great.
There's some cost involved in it, very minimal, but I think it's $25 a year, $1.50 an email for the first 20 that come out. But, I'll
right.
talk with parish president to see
Rick,
how we handle that.
The notification from affected pipelines, of an event, is that?
That's addressed in the ordinance.
addressed?
If you look at 813, it's a brand-new section of the ordinance where we discuss notifications from the pipeline operator or the contractor that's involved with either trenching or has a damaged pipeline.
Hold up. Let's see, 813. 11.
8, 9.
Let's see if I can locate it real quick. But we do address that, is that if there is, how do you prevent damage, and then if there is damage that occurs, who do you notify?
What? You don't have a page. I don't see 813, 810.
Page 28. Says each person responsible for an excavation or demolition operations which result in damage to an underground utility or facility permitting the escape of a flammable, toxic, or corrosive fluid gases shall immediately, upon discovery of that damage, notify the owner-operator and the 911 center.
Okay, is that included oxygen, nitrogen, these high pressure?
We can modify it.
Can we add high
address it. So
pressure?
if your recommendation is to add non-regulated lines, we can
Yes.
do that also. Okay.
Yes. Any high pressure lines. That's going to be a possible hazard to the community.
And what I found so far is that the LA one call mapping system within the pipeline right-of-way seems to be much more detailed than the national pipeline mapping system. That never showed the oxygen lines in the right-of-way. LA one call did. So, but I want to make sure that we capture that kind of verbiage. So all pipes within the pipeline. If you're boring or trenching within a pipeline, every pipeline is subject to this.
Okay. Well, and the main thing is that as soon as possible, if there's an event and they have a plant that has a noticeable depressurization, which they know something happens, you get notified right away so that you know what what is being emitted, and then we can notify the residences. I think that was the biggest problem, is to find out what, as soon as possible, find out what was being let out in some type of explosion and so on.
I think this will put us moving in the right direction to get that data. Pipelines are a little bit different than transportation or fixed sites. They take a little bit longer, but I think this will get us moving in the right direction.
Okay. All right, we're good. And all right, and they have steps to see who to notify. You have.
Well, we're referencing the document that's in your packet on the left. The document in your packet on the left is dealing primarily with fixed sites, but we want to develop one similar to this for our pipeline operators within the parish. So we're this specific on who you call and who to notify and what's the length of time that you have to notify them. Really, it's immediately upon you discover that you have a problem.
Yeah. That's what we found to be the biggest problem, was just getting somebody notified right away so we can get the correct information out.
Right. But again,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, like I told you during the last meeting, I don't want to make this decision in a vacuum. This will be presented to APSO on Friday to see what impact it has on their operations. It'll be presented to the local emergency planning committee next week, and because I value their input, and we'll
Yes.
get that data and present it back to you.
Let's get as much input as we can and make sure we doing the right thing and heading in the right direction. That'd
Will
be
do.
fantastic. We were planning on, our timeline was to take this and move forward to the council after this meeting, but I think, as Rick had suggested, we need to wait another month or so and make sure we get everything correct and move forward before we move on this. We appreciate all the input and the tremendous amount of work, so thank you, Rick.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Parish President, have you received any call from any of the pipelines regarding this, or nothing?
Hadn't heard anything.
Okay. I would just,
Yeah,
wonder
we
if they
would-
wanted to voice their opinion on any of it.
Rick, I think you have communication with these different people at different times. I mean, have you been communicating with any of these entities?
I talked to we have in a general membership of the LEPC most of the pipeline operators in the parish, so we see each other at least quarterly, and we coordinate with them. Some of them are on the hazmat team, and several that are on the hazmat team I go to get advice, because they're subject matter experts on pipelines. So that's who I turn to when I have these questions. In addition to the State Emergency Response Commission, that's who I go to.
Let's just make sure that we touch base with all of them so that they know what we're doing.
We will.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Number 5, discussion of ordinance to reduce residential density across parish commercial zoning designations. Ricky?
Yes, sir. This is the
Yeah.
the ordinance that we've discussed at the past 2 meetings, and the objective here was to reduce the densities allowed, the residential densities allowed in 2 of our commercial designations, being mixed use 1 and Crossroads Commercial. So today in mixed use 1, you're allowed to do single family detached residential up to 8 units an acre. You're allowed to do duplex and 0 lot lines up to 10 units an acre, and you're allowed to do multifamily residential up to 20 units an acre. The discussion has been to reduce those numbers from 8 single-family detached units per acre to 4, from 10 duplex or 0 lot line units per acre to 5, and to reduce multifamily from 20 units an acre to 8. So the tables that are reflected in your packages are the changes that we would need to make that happen.
And Crossroads Commercial is approximately the same thing.
Yes, sir.
All right, and we're just talking about the commercial areas, and what are some of the areas, Ricky, that are mostly zoned right now, these commercial areas that we're talking about?
Mixed-use corridor, or our MU1 designation, is primarily Airline Highway. Crossroads Commercial is primarily located at significant intersections along Highway 42, Highway 44, and Highway 431. There's a few other locations around the parish, but those are the primary locations for those designations.
And what about 42? Isn't that Mostly zoned crossroads commercial,
The bulk of 42 that's not at intersections is zoned mixed use 2.
mixed use, okay. Yes, Ms. Cazzo? Yes.
Ricky, I have 3 or 4 questions. I can't decide right now if it's 3 or 4, so I guess what you say will determine that. The first observation I want to make is I'm extremely concerned about doing this. We have airline highway zoned appropriately for density. In light of the recent failure of the transportation plan, obviously it's going to be a while before we have infrastructure improvements in the inside of the parish in areas that are not so designated. And so the airline really is, in some of those areas where you just named, the only places where any density at all is acceptable based on the infrastructure, current infrastructure. So if we take that away out of the commercial areas, where do those folks like myself, baby boomers, those people like me and a little older, where do we go when we're tired of living in our houses and need a little more density, maybe a condominium, maybe it's a townhouse? Where do those of us go if there are no places for us that have some density? Because it's not going to be possible for a contractor to come in here and build 8 units per acre and have a return on his investment at that level. So I think what this actually will do is preclude any further construction of those kinds of things. And subsequently, those who are already here, those will become increasingly valuable because there are more and more people like me looking for a smaller place to live. And so those will cost us an inordinate amount of money because there are so few of them. And new construction will be almost prohibited because of the cost. I mean, anybody who's going to build a project of that nature is looking for a return on his investment. So that's my first observation about it. The second concern I have is sprawl. If we cannot build anywhere but in, subdivisions in this parish, it is proven that costs more over time to our infrastructure than does density. I think there's a lot of evidence to that speaks to that on the internet. You can look it all up. The cost is extremely prohibitive when you have subdivisions all over the parish. All those roads have to be improved in order to accommodate those people. And that infrastructure is more and more expensive. And in light of our recent failure to have a plan for transportation, we're not going to be able to improve those roads. Third, or maybe it's the fourth one, where are entry-level people who live in our community? People who are looking for a job or just out of college or don't have a college degree but maybe have one of these wonderful new 2-year technical degrees that come out of college, or Baton Rouge Community College or River Parish Community College, but they're entry-level employees. Where are those folks going to live? I mean, they will have to live outside of the parish and drive into the parish, further congesting our roads. I mean, it makes sense to me, and I go back to the first point. The airline highway and those other significant intersections that are appropriately zoned for density are really the only place to put it at this point in time, and particularly in light of the transportation failure. So we are either saying nobody gets to live here anymore. They have to live outside this parish, or if I live in my house and I now want to sell my house and I want a condominium, I'm not going to be able to buy one. I mean, I just think this is a step in the wrong direction, and particularly in light of the billions, and I say that billions of dollars worth of investment about to be made in the chemical corridor, particularly in Ascension Parish. And we are not going to have a place for those folks to live. Now, I understand that if we do this, where they can live is in, manufactured housing in trailer parks. And I don't think that our property values are enhanced. Not that I have a thing against, I lived in a trailer under my grandmother's tree for many years. That's how I got enough money together to buy my first house. So I understand that completely. But it does not enhance our property values if we have trailer park after trailer park after trailer park, because I'm going to tell you, people have to find a place to live, and landowners are going to find a way to accommodate their desire for a place to live, and we will end up with trailer parks instead of lovely apartment complexes or lovely condominiums that we have some stipulation on what those things look like. So I've shared all my concerns, and I'll be happy to put them in the form of a question if there are any, or maybe I'm just on a rant.
Ricky, you got comment?
All right, so would you like me to respond as a planner, or would you like me to respond as a citizen who attended all of the comprehensive plan meetings?
I want you to respond
Well,
as a
both.
planner, and then, you know, if you want to throw something in there as a citizen, that would be great too. But, I mean, your job here is as a planner, and I want to know from a planning perspective, your position on my observations.
Okay, so as the costs go up, as the number of apartments go down, I would argue that developers could probably figure out a way to fiscally make a lower density apartment work, because if the price is exorbitant to charge the baby boomers who want to get out and live in them, you could probably fiscally make that work with fewer units at a higher cost. But that's not the nature of apartments. The nature of apartments is affordable living for the young people, for the working class, the entry-level people. So the argument from a planning perspective is the price of apartments don't go up because people just, they can't afford it. They're going to move somewhere else where they can't afford it. Where do we go when there are fewer of it? We go to Baton Rouge. We go to some other community. The argument is the cities, Donaldsonville and Gonzales, have the infrastructure, the sewer, the water, the power, the utilities to support higher density. But you could also counter that argument with, if it's ever going to come in the unincorporated part of the parish, it's going to come down Airline Highway or down 42 or 44. I do agree that sprawl is prohibitive when it comes to cost. The part of the problem you do see in Ascension Parish is that we've spread out so far. In planning terms, they call it the devil's density, because you can't afford to support it fiscally. You can't afford to run the sewer pipes out forever. You can't afford to widen every road to hold all the cars you need to hold. If those entry-level people do have to move outside of the parish, we are going to exacerbate our traffic problem, because if they're coming back to work in our industrial corridor, that traffic is going to be just contraflow to what it is today. And once again, from the planning perspective, if somebody came to me with these changes in play and asked, how do I build an apartment complex, my answer is you do a planned unit development. You do a PUD, a SPUD, or a T&D. But I'd also tell them the likelihood is that that's going to be denied, because the last two that we've seen go before the commission and the council were denied, and they were actually the same use of their zoning category, but they were increasing the density or increasing the intensity of the development. So the PUD, SPUD, T&D isn't a guarantee that a development's actually going to happen. Now, from the citizen side of the table, I'm going to say we don't want apartments in Ascension Parish. We want those people to live somewhere else, and I don't care about the entry level. We're going to family partition our property, and we're going to create a place for them to live near family. We heard that overwhelmingly across all of the meetings, and so I do come to you with that as an opinion, is that we don't want apartments in Ascension Parish. We want to be a single-family detached community, and if you want to live in an apartment, go to the city.
Thank you.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
don't agree with that. I want my daughter, if she's here, to be able to live in Ascension Parish. I want my.
Well, and I think and the reason we brought this up for discussion is because it is an issue, and it is something that is, both sides.
Right.
I also believe that there's always a way to accommodate things to take care of different entities. And that being that we only allow, we only zone for the necessary amount and not have things overzone where we get too much too fast. And so I'm not sure about how to go about doing that, whether we are at that point, and that's why I wanted to have this discussion. If we take a look at it, as things are now, Ricky, apparently we have the density on the books right now that these things can be built. But I do look at the zoning map and see there are some areas where people are already complaining about traffic and water and sewer and things of that sort. And if we put these many people in these smaller areas right away, are we doing just the opposite of what we want to do, or are we doing, exactly what Ms. Cazzo, which I understand exactly what she's talking about? Is it more cost effective for us to have people in an area on these main roads where we can get infrastructure to them? And now I think that's the big question. We don't want to get too much too fast. Do we have enough now? Are we headed in the right direction, or do we have to cut, or should we cut back, or whatever? So I guess that's what we're asking, Ricky.
You want me to do an evaluation of the housing product in the parish and whether or not we have enough apartments? I would argue that the market's going to dictate that. The code as it's written, I don't know if you have the table in front of you, but number 1 on the bottom of that table says the maximum number of dwelling units for an entire apartment complex is 48.
Mm-hmm.
Right there, a developer has to get a variance to build an apartment complex.
Mm-hmm.
We had one at the Board of Adjustments this past month. It was tabled, for lack of a better term, because the Board of Adjustments wanted to see a site plan. They wanted to see how the drainage and the traffic and everything was going to be accommodated, which I can understand. But the fact of the matter is they're not exceeding 20 units an acre, but they have to exceed 48. So the code already has some of these sort of checks and balances in it to make sure that an apartment complex doesn't become overwhelming. But the two that have gotten those variances to exceed that density, to do something better, I think are good examples of market entry-level apartment complexes that have a nice little amenity package for those people. The argument is if you reduce the density over the whole parish, those will cease to exist as far as new products.
Yeah. And I think for anybody that doesn't know, that's the one right by the interstate at old Dutchtown, and then right across from Tanger Mall. I think those are two.
And the one on Airline Highway, is it the
right? No,
mansions
there's 3 there that I think everybody's been pretty well satisfied with,
right,
as being the type of development that people in the Ascension Parish are comfortable with. I'm sorry, Mr. President.
I think it's something that needs to maybe go back to the Planning Commission and let them come back and maybe make some recommendations and look at the direction that work with the staff and look at the direction that we need to go. I mean, there was some good ideas. We had a lot of meetings, and maybe it's time to look back at those meetings and see what we can bring back up and see if we can come up with a plan for the parish.
I would just like to, say I think that's a great idea, and I'm concerned. We want to get sewer in the ground. We need to have customers on those lines in order to make that work, and to completely eliminate a whole range of housing in our parish that with some density gives us customers on those commercial lines just makes absolutely no sense to me. From a return on investment perspective, it does not make any sense to me that an investor would want to build in this parish under these very, very strict guidelines. And it's obvious to me that people like the traffic in Ascension Parish. Obviously it was okay with them. So, we're going to just have to keep doing what we're doing. And I would really like to see this get a lot more look-see before we preclude that I can't live in a condominium, or my daughter can't live in an apartment, or my young entry-level employee can't live in this parish. When they finish work at night, they eat in this parish, they shop in this parish. All the things that benefit this parish and from a revenue perspective happen when people live where they work. And I would like to see that happen. Otherwise, they're going to go to Baton Rouge and spend their money in Baton Rouge.
Okay, that's why we want it.
And I just want to say that, you know, we got probably 7,000 new construction jobs that's going to probably start this year. I mean, we've got that much announcements that's already here. I mean, that's not something that we're hoping to get. That's not something that the pie in the sky. So you're going to see a tremendous amount of traffic on our roads. Now, whether they live here or not, I don't think we have that many construction workers in this area. So you're going to have those people on the road. You know, I think everything now that can be rented is rented. I think there's a waiting list in all types of housing here in the parish, which is a good problem to have in some ways. But the scary thing is that the work hadn't really started yet. So people are coming before that. And then this other project that we are working on, and if it does come to the parish, we're talking maybe another 10,000 construction jobs. So, you know, there's some planning that needs to be done here, and we don't have a whole lot of time to do it. And my point is that I think the Planning Commission needs to get involved back with us as a council and help us come up with a plan.
And after having this discussion, you know, we're getting to see that there's, you know, a bunch of different opinions. There's not one solid opinion on this, and
Absolutely.
there's many different views, and I think that's the appropriate thing to do. And so,
Mr. Chairman, and you know, also, Parish President, let's go ahead and get the school board involved. When will the next planning and zoning meeting are you going to make sure this is on it, Ricky, or what?
well, this is going to have this should go with some discussions or working meetings. I think that y'all have to get started on that standpoint.
We do our subcommittee meetings during the commission meetings, so we can just put this, and we didn't have anything in our zoning commission packet, I don't believe, for this month. So I can probably include this as a discussion item just so we can start the ball and get back on it in January.
And we just like to make sure that there's different points of view, that we get
Sure.
a happy medium on this, Ricky, because, you know, we know there's some values on each side as to where we want to head, and what, and I think that's very important that is put out there.
I think Mr. Lambert's right. At one time, we had 2 members from the school board on the planning commission as alternate members or whatever. I don't recall, but maybe we can ask for that again in this planning process.
We have the ex-superintendent on there now, so he should have a good working knowledge of it. So.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Yeah,
Look
I'm
forward to
great with that.
discussing.
I look forward to seeing more evaluation be done before we limit ourselves in what I think would be a serious way.
Ricky, we don't have to put any type of motion or anything on this. If you want to take this and just move forward, however you think on this, we want to make sure and just have this discussion so we'll go from here. Any further discussion?
Good
Okay.
job.
With that, we come to number 6.
So move to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Lambert, second by Ms. Cazzo. This meeting is
Adjourned.
adjourned.